Hello again and welcome to The Luxury of Choice, a technical B2B sales podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan, I'm a senior sales trainer with George James and I'm also the host and the producer of this podcast. It's been a super busy start of the year for all the sales trainers here at George James. And since the start of 2026, we've all been flat out delivering training courses across many time zones. For this reason, we weren't able to get a slot that worked to record a new show this week. So instead, I'm going to give you the chance to listen back to an earlier show, one from 2024 in fact, our first season. You will notice the previous intro music and perhaps a slightly different pace and feel to the show. You're going to hear Jonathan Cooper, Prue Layton and myself discussing how to handle customer objections, something of a speciality subject for us all here at George James. And you may be surprised to hear that objections aren't necessarily bad news. Enjoy this listen back opportunity, and we'll be back with a new show soon. Hello again, and welcome to The Luxury of Choice, a B2B technical sales and business podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm a senior sales trainer at George James, as well as the host and producer of this podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my colleagues, Jonathan Cooper and Prue Layton. And Prue, you're looking very well. You've just been on holiday, I think.
I definitely have, especially if you've checked my calendar, Steve. I got back late last night, so...
Well, thank you for doing this then. Where'd you go?
So I went to an island, a Greek island called Lesvos.
Okay.
We go every year to share a bit of personal information here to go and watch the bird migration with our binoculars and our sandals, and we spend all day outside looking at birds and making a list. And this year we saw 128 different species.
Wow, 128. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to get you on the other podcast that I do, the photography podcast, but that's another topic for another day. Because your husband Simon's a big photographer of birds as well, isn't he?
He is. He has about 40,000 photos to check through.
Wow. Okay, that's going to keep him busy for a while.
Until next year.
Actually, we were doing something similar. So my wife and I have just come back from a week. I don't know if you say on Orkney or in Orkney. So if you're an Orcadian, I apologise if I got that wrong. But we've been to Orkney anyway, which is a long way to go. It's a long way to drive with two doggies in the back. We did obviously stop on the way. But yes, we were doing some bird watching and bird photography. Sam was saying, oh, look, there's a bird there, stop. And I'm driving down the road, I suddenly stop and pull over. But she saw lots of interesting different birds. Not that I know what they were, but I also got to look around some of the history up there as well. There's loads of history, stuff from 5000 BC. So that was super cool. Yeah. But Jonathan, you didn't go anywhere, I don't think.
No.
You were running the show while we were enjoying ourselves.
That's right, yeah. I was just feeling bad for you, Steve, because the Highland Park distillery was closed for refurbishment, wasn't it? Yeah, on Orkney. So I was just in Vaughan for you for 2 weeks, yeah. But no,
it's my favourite whiskey as well.
Oh, I know. It's one of mine too. It's great. So no, I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, well, thanks for running the business while we were having a break. But I know you've got some holiday plans in the near future. So back to business, and I'm fully in with training. I know you both are as well. But we're going to move on to another part of the sales process. So we've gone through lots of aspects of the sales process. So we started this podcast. We've looked at what the sales process is. We've looked at prospecting. How to run a great sales visit. We looked at negotiation, which perhaps was slightly out of sequence. But we're going to go back up the process a little bit now. And we're going to look at objections, customer objections. And what we're going to look at today, or talk about today, is why do customers raise objections and what objections are really, and why they may not be, and here's a little teaser, why they might not actually be bad news if we do get customer objections. But let's start right at the start really. And what is a customer objection, Prue? What do we mean by a customer objection?
Well, I guess it can mean a number of things, really. But I think the first thought that comes to my mind is a customer objection is basically when they sort of stop you in your tracks and potentially sort of disagree with you, dare I say, or raise a concern, or in some way sort of stop your fantastic sales pitch that has worked every time before and suddenly doesn't.
Oh, I didn't expect them to say that, in other words. Yeah, and to me, Jonathan, objection sounds like quite a strong word. I mean, we use that in sales training speak a lot, customer objections, objection handling. But if I was to say to a customer, oh, let me talk about your objection, that sounds a little bit confrontational. Am I being a bit oversensitive there, or would you agree?
No, I don't think so, Steve. I mean, Prue actually used the word concern. Right. I mean, I'm always very sensitive to this because I'm not sure how well it translates, this subtle difference between objection and concern in other languages. But yeah, fortunately in English, we do have this word concern, which for me is much softer. And when you think about what an objection is, I go right back to the start of my sales career. Quite frankly, was something that used to terrify me.
Right.
And it was one of the things in selling I was terrible at when I started. I early days don't have some happy memories of objections, and I probably used the word back to the customer as well. I was probably just like a rabbit in the headlights, actually. I prefer to use the word concern. Perhaps you could use the word worry. But that in itself is an interesting one because, what is an objection? Certainly the early stages of my career, I can only ever think about the negative aspects of an objection, but maybe it isn't.
Okay, let's explore that a bit more then. So, objections. Well, first of all, what kind of things? What are the reasons that customers might have concerns or objections? Why don't they just agree with everything that we say? If only.
Well, sometimes we're not always right, dare I say.
That's a good point, actually.
Might not agree with everything we say.
Often in my case, actually.
And they may have different experiences, but I think in terms of why they might raise an objection, I think it could be a whole range of reasons. It could be sometimes we don't have the clarity that we should have.
Right.
And what might make sense in our head, we haven't explained well enough, and we leave the customer slightly confused. I mean, I'm sure we've spoken previously on some of these podcasts about active listening and how important it is to actively listen and how hard that is. Well, let's also put the customer's shoes on. They're not always actively listening either. So it may be that we feel that we shared something, but they just weren't listening or were distracted at the time. I think another reason is, dare I say, they may have seen one of our competitors who might have suggested there was a potential weakness in our offering, and as a customer, they would like to explore that with us. That could be another reason why a customer would raise a concern with us. Is because it's been mentioned, and it may not even be directly from a competitor. Yeah. We know that so many of our customers these days do a lot of research and look at groups way before they've seen us. So they may have got a strongly held opinion from a colleague or from something they've read or a group on LinkedIn that they've looked at. Mm. And that could also be a source of one of these objections or concerns, as we say.
Okay. So
but I'll let Jonathan have the happy news to say a good reason why a customer might raise an objection. I'll hand that one over to you. Not a hospital pass this time, Jonathan.
Hospital pass.
Not a hospital pass.
Oh, right, good. Right. Okay, he's an open goal then, Jonathan, for you. Anybody who doesn't understand football, apology for the football analogies, but anyway.
Or soccer, if you're listening the other side of the water.
Soccer, if you're American,
yeah. Well, it is Monday morning, so I'm not sure I've had enough coffee, so I hope I'm going to get this one right. So what is an objection? Hey, it's an opportunity. It's a buying signal. Right, that's what it is to me. Did I pass, Prue?
Yes, you passed.
Oh,
good. Yeah.
Good. So
put it in the top corner, 1-0.
Yeah, and it's and as I gained experience, and I think because my start in selling was so rocky with respect to objection handling, when somebody gave me that definition, and I can't remember who did, but it was I thank them so much if they're listening, and they happen to remember giving me that. it just changed my whole perspective, on what objections were, right? What concerns were from a customer perspective, because I now just looked at them in a completely different way. And Prue's right. There's just so many ways they can arise, and with all of the information that people are bombarded with, it's not that difficult to get confused. And if you are presenting a really complex principle, key principle, or something that's pretty complex, sometimes it isn't just enough to present it once or say it once. Sometimes we need to reinforce it. It may be clear to you, but how clear is it to the customer? Do we explain things in the most simple way? I don't know. I think
that's a really important point, Jonathan, if I can, because before we move on, because if I'm visiting Prue, I'm the salesperson, and Prue's my customer, and Prue says, I want it delivered by September. That's a fairly obvious thing to say. But if we've gone through a very technical, think of the people who listen to this podcast, our customers, the people that we train. Many were selling very, very technical products and services. And even, I'm a scientist a long time ago, but I struggle sometimes to understand the things that they sell. So you can see how that misunderstanding could happen, and the objection or the concern would be purely not of some kind of ulterior motive or some kind of cunning plan laid by our competitors, but just generally the customer has thought we've said A, but actually what we've said is B. Yeah, you're not improved. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think, we're not always switched on all the time in terms of our listening. And so neither are customers. They're often distracted and busy, and, they have things. And I think the other thing I wanted to raise, thinking about it, is that we end up with this shorthand speak that we use inside our businesses.
That's a good point.
And sometimes, we will use a term that's very familiar to us. I often think of one of the things we talked about on qualification was ROI, a classic one. Yeah. And depending on where you come from, ROI can mean many things. It can mean Republic of Ireland.
Yeah.
It can mean the classic return on investment, or if you are a spectroscopist, it could be region of interest.
Oh, wow,
so, yeah, ROI is a region of interest.
There's a quiz here for the
listener. So inside our own businesses, particularly with a lot of technical information, we use these shorthand forms or ways of saying things. And sometimes customers won't question you, won't stop you in your tracks, and they may just have simply misunderstood, and that's okay.
Yeah. You remind me of the time I went to work for Thermo Fisher, which is a great organisation, of course, but I think it took me 3 months before I got to know all the 3-letter acronyms that we used in the business. And it's very easy to slip into that shorthand without realising the customer. So what are the reasons why the customer have an objection or a concern then, Jonathan? So misunderstanding, the competitors laid a trap for us. Is there any other reasons why they might have a concern?
Yeah, I think Prue partly referred to it, really. I think it's very easy to hear things in the marketplace. There's just so much chatter, isn't there? I was going to say there's so much Twitter. There's so much chatter. And, there's so many places you can go to find information. There's so many sources of it. And it can appear overwhelming. If you're just researching something in your personal life that's relatively straightforward, you're just bombarded with vast numbers of options, right, and alternatives. And actually, most of them in reality are quite good. So, I think that's actually I think that's part of it as well. Maybe it's never normally one thing. Maybe it's several things. And I think, people also take them. I think customers, we all do it, don't we? I think we all have a bias as well. There's just an inherent bias that most of us have when we go to buy something for all sorts of reasons. It could be historical, it could be legacy, it could be, as I think you both said that, it's something that it's somebody I know, a really good contact of mine, once said to me about something. It's almost a rumor that can cause it. And I think, that it's just that general, there's just several things perhaps can sort of come together, to do that, which can cause these to arise.
Yeah, good point. You do get these sort of almost urban legends that go around the industry sometimes. Everybody knows this. Where's that one come from? It's strange.
And I think And I think some companies have been absolutely brilliant at building communities. And, when you're in a community and you're part of it and you feel really part of it, I don't think it's unreasonable to say you actually can get quite defensive. And I'm not saying anybody would ever lie, but you can end up selectively presenting information or selectively receiving information, as part of that. So it all counts. It can all count against you. If it all comes together, it's almost can be a perfect storm, can't it? Everything is heading your way. Yeah.
And brand loyalty, I think, comes into it as well.
Yes.
Talking to you on my Rode microphone with my Rode headphones on, or my Apple computer here, or Prue's pointed to a Rode microphone as well. Other microphones and computers are available, dear listener. But brand loyalty does come into it, doesn't it? And, I think that happens a lot in our industry as well, Prue. People get comfortable with a brand that they know and a supplier that they know. And then perhaps we use objections as a reason to justify that bias almost.
Yeah. So I think the other thing I was thinking about was one of the reasons that a customer will raise an objection is, when we get closer to a decision, when we're evaluating, when we're in buying mode, we're evaluating all the options and we narrow them down, and brand loyalty will definitely play a part, and opinions that we've researched. My husband is obsessed with looking at Trustpilot for everything, and I go, it's just full of rubbish, don't do it. But anyway, what happens is I think we have a very open mind. If you think about how we make decisions, we have a very open mind when we're evaluating. And the closer we get to actually deciding, am I going to go A or B, it's a really natural human reaction to then have some doubts about the decision you sort of made, and you want to test it. So I think that's the other reason that objections happen, is because before I finally go, yes, Steve, you've got the deal, it's very natural for me in my head to go, am I sure? Am I certain? Should I just check? Have I thought about this carefully? And whether we're making a small purchase or a big purchase, it's just natural, isn't it, to do that?
It is.
And I think in terms of our sales conversations, that would very naturally come out as a customer objection or concern. Yeah. They're not saying I'm not going to. What they're saying is, make me feel sure or make me feel certain.
Yeah.
I've just before I finally make the step, I just want to check.
Absolutely.
And I think, and as we get closer, we know as sales professionals, when people are coming to that decision-making time, I think we can get very sensitive when suddenly a customer objection rears itself. We thought, this was all going so well. Where did that come from?
You're totally right, Prue. You and I have been working with a large US-based company now on a training program for most of this year so far. And one of the things we do, and you wrote it in the objection handling, is a role play. And it's deliberately designed. The buyer brief for the role play is that it's the person's new in role. And when people are new in role, they're very, very risk averse for obvious reasons. Yeah, obvious reasons. Do you think, Jonathan? Yeah, you'll see you nodding.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things to pick out of that one. Thanks, Prue.
Yeah, we'll go for it.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think if I sometimes think we get very used to talking in large sums of money. Many salespeople, even if even if inverted commas they're selling lower cost products, often those can be bought in a considerable unit number. So actually, some of those reagent and consumable deals can run into millions and millions.
Absolutely.
But I think it's really important we think about the customer psychology through this. These can be some huge decisions. I'm trying to wrap my brains on whether we've touched it on in a previous podcast, but that human emotion, that personal emotional driver. As I was always taught, people make emotional decisions, buying decisions, and then spend hours and hours rationalizing them.
I think that's right.
There's there can be a lot at stake here. If you're spending a large sum of money, it's a project which has got significant visibility inside the organization. It's not surprised that we end up being tested, and these hurdles and these barriers appear. I always like to think it in terms of de-risking the decision for people, and welcoming objections, welcoming concerns. I think if you're finding them, it's a good sign because they're buying signals or they're opportunities. If you're not finding them, quite frankly, I'd worry. I really would.
Why? I agree, but why?
Why? Because it's never that smooth, is it? What did Edgar Allan Poe say? And I think you have to just be a little bit skeptical. What did he say? And I know I'm going to get this wrong. He said something right. We should put it in the notes. He said, only believe half of what you see and nothing of what you hear. Right. Now, maybe that's a little extreme, okay? And I know somebody will correct. But, it's a really good way to sometimes think, if there are no concerns, there are no objections, why? Really? There must be something somewhere, and certainly for the person that may be in the organisation hidden, who maybe doesn't want our project to succeed, they'll certainly have them. If we've not met them, we may never hear them, we may never see them. If we've not found out any way of understanding how they're thinking, we might not ever see them or hear them. So that's just some thoughts there, which might be interesting.
Lots of things come out of that, for future podcasts, complex sales and people, we would be in different roles in different organizations and the part they play, hold that thought, listener. We will come on to that in the foreseeable future. But I want to go back to something you just said and taking it with Prue, really. So, and this might be somewhat of a surprise to perhaps inexperienced or new salespeople on listening to this podcast, that objections are good news.
They're great news.
Yes.
And let's just explore that a bit more. So why are they good news?
They're good news because a customer who raises a concern with you or raises a doubt or whatever you want to call it is actually going, help me understand. It's a way of saying, help me get this right in my head, help me understand. So I think that they have to be good news because all they're asking or searching for is confirmation or something to be restated in a way that they understand. So what they're asking you to do is to help me understand so I'm making a good decision. So an objection has to be good news because it says, I'm interested.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't raise any sort of concern or doubt, I interpret that as, I'm not really interested, but I'm obliged to see more than one company. So you're one of the three. So purchasing, don't challenge me. And I'm not really interested in your product or your solution. I'm going through the steps with you. Yeah. And one of the fastest ways to do that is to go, no, that looks great. No, everything's fine. No, I don't. Actually, no, I don't have any questions at all. And if someone has no questions at all, really?
Completely. And that says to me as a salesperson, I'm making the numbers up. It's that, we've all had that phone call with, bombing along the motorway at legal speeds, of course, and we get the phone call and we pull over and take the call. Or call the customer back, and the customer says, yes, Steve, you don't know who I am, but I'd like a quote for one of your products, please. And can you get it to me by tomorrow? And you go, oh, yeah, great. Can I just find a bit more about what you're doing? Oh, no, everything's fine. I just need a quote. And that's just saying to us, we're making the numbers up, And sometimes we have to go through the process, of course. That's for another discussion again, or how we handle that one. But so objections are good news, Jonathan, and we should welcome them, and we should perhaps actively go and hunt them out if we don't get them, yeah?
Yes. And, I just to quickly first just go back to something Prue said.
Please.
No objections are the worst thing of all. No concerns, no, inverted commas, challenging questions, whichever phrase you wish to use, are the worst. To me, they're worse than, inverted commas, a false objection, right?
Okay.
And there are, without going into too much detail, because it'd probably take up the rest of the podcast. Some objections are true, some are false.
We'll come back to that, and I want to explore that.
Yeah. Okay, great. And I do think that and whether you're facing a true or a false objection, that's better than absolutely nothing, really. So yeah, I think it's it's just critical that we do make every attempt. And now to come back to your point, Steve, to pull these concerns and these objections out. We should be finding them, quite frankly, as early as we can in the sales process. The worst thing that can happen. And sorry, yeah,
why is early in the process?
Yeah, because there is what is the worst scenario? The worst scenario is getting towards the end of our sales process. The customer's nearing the end of their buying process, and then an objection is raised, and we look at it and think, "Oh, thank goodness for that. We can handle it." Okay, we can handle it in terms of the topic, the subject, the content, but what we can't do is handle it in the time that's left, right, for the sale to run. Right. And sometimes you can just run out of time. And I remember losing, a significant order because I ran out of time to handle the objection. I found it too late, and I just regretted. And of course, guess what? It went back to qualification. I should have listened better. I should have asked some follow-up questions, and I would have almost certainly uncovered it. Okay, it was my mistake. I got it wrong. So that's why get them out early. And of course, it helps you make that fundamental decision. Do you want to play this opportunity or not? Do you want to play this deal or not?
Makes sense.
And because the objections we find when we're having those initial conversations with the customer, to me, are just great. Find them, dig them out. You can even raise them, dare I say.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
meet them head on.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, it's really good points there, I think. And I guess if we're going to lose the sale, it's best to lose it at the get-go rather than after we've done a load of work and a load of effort. If we were never going to win it in the first place, it's best to know that at the start. So, I think great salespeople are good at losing their orders early. That doesn't sound slightly counterproductive, yeah. And I guess it's another reason for forecast slippage as well. Yeah, we get an objection we weren't anticipating, and we've got to do a lot more work now, and that's now had an impact on the forecast, and it's now got out under the 3 months. So let's come back to this point about false objections, which again, for newer salespeople listening, they may not know what they mean by that. So, what is a false objection, Prue, and why would a customer raise one?
So, a false objection is, I guess, I kind of think of them as a barrier that you can get over. So if it's a false objection, it is a concern the customer has, but it's something that you can navigate, right, and actually either minimise or resolve. You have two choices when customers share them. We can't always resolve every customer objection, but we can definitely minimise many. A real objection is something that's a showstopper. Right. If a customer has a real objection to your offering, it means that there is something the customer absolutely needs and we absolutely can't do it. And that could be a whole range of things.
So it's a roadblock.
Yeah, it is. It's an absolute roadblock. It's a hurdle or a barrier that you can't get over. And whilst we may be frustrated that the customer wants something that we don't have, customers have choice and we have to respect that. Absolutely. It might be that we just don't have that thing that fits for them, whether it's a compliance thing, whether it's a performance thing, whether it's an availability thing, or dare I say, whether it's a budget thing. There are a whole range of things that we may not be able to totally satisfy the customer on. So a false objection is a hurdle, a barrier that the customer puts in our way, but we can navigate it.
And is that kind of saying that the customer, shock horror, isn't always 100% accurate with us, Jonathan? Or dare I say truthful?
No. I was careful there in my response.
Very dramatic of you. Yeah, we're very careful. That was a hospital pass.
I mean, yes, it was. I think there are some. I think definitely sometimes, Steve, we see objections arise because they're hiding something. There's something they don't want to tell us. And I remember a deal I lost when this customer gave me all sorts of excuses once, and I shouldn't say who the customer was, of course, but it was a large research institute in central London. And
okay,
I had all of these reasons, and none of them made any sense to me at all because none of them actually had any impact on the ability of the customer to do their work, perform their application. Anyway, it was about a year and a half later when I employed the salesperson that did get the deal from the competitor. And he told me this. He said, just didn't like you. They thought you were a real cocky so-and-so. There you go. So that was the reason. Yeah. So, good learning for me. And it was.
Customers won't always like us, will they?
No, they won't. And a great tip there, by the way, if you sense that, and let's face it, most salespeople have got very good emotional intelligence. If you sense, and I was just blind to it at that point for whatever reason, if you sense that it's going to be very difficult for if there's no chemistry, there's no relationship, they're very difficult to have that sort of immediate or personal bond with somebody in some way, then you should substitute yourself out. Find a colleague who'd be far more suitable to actually go and sell to that customer. Yeah, we try and hire salespeople, don't we? That actually can go and sell to anybody, but that's tough. That's really tough. No, that's right. And I know the type of customer that's my nemesis, and I have to be so self-aware and so careful when I'm selling. So there we go. That's
lots of learning for future podcasts. Yeah. This podcast is full of football analogies today. Again, apologies to non-football supporters. I won't emphasise the fact that my team finished above yours, guys. But anyway, that's another story. So let's go back. So segueing back to the podcast that we did last time, or the two that we've done about negotiation and by implication price. To me, Prue, and I'd like your thoughts on this. To me, price is a classic false objection. People will often say you're too expensive, and really, there's another reason. Is that your experience as well?
Almost always, price is a false objection. Because for several reasons, really. I guess the principal one, it's the easiest one to give you. Yeah. It would be very difficult to say, Jonathan, I'm not buying from you because I don't like you. I mean, I'd be a very bold customer that would do that. But it's much easier to say, it was a really close run thing, but, I got a slightly better deal from one of your competitors. Because, customers want to let you down gently. They can see you've put effort and time in. So they're saying it's something that's nothing to do with you. So that's why I think price is the classic, easy, false objection, especially as we talk about budget and meeting budget and options all the way through the sales process. So it can't actually always be a real objection unless you find it out right early and you, as you said, Jonathan, you choose not to play that deal because actually the budget the customer's got available and wherever else they might be able to get some is not going to be matching with a solution that you can offer them. So get out,
Head for the hills. Yeah. You've got a great example, which I won't ask you to go through now, but when we do training together, you've got a fantastic example of your own personal experience, which exactly relates to that. So if you want to hear that, dear listener, you're going to have to book Prue for your training course.
I don't even know it either. I'll have to book her as well.
I'll get my diary out.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, fabulous. Yeah.
I'll let you two do a deal later, So before we wrap this up then, so we've gone through lots of, well, first of all, thanks for your thoughts, guys. So we've gone through lots of reasons why customers raise objections, the kind of objections that the customers can raise, or concerns. Let's use the word concern. Why customer concerns aren't necessarily bad news and in fact are actually good news. And we've also talked about, the difference between real and false concerns and why customers might raise a false concern. Now, in the few minutes we've got left on the pod, we do have a process we use in our training for overcoming and handling objections, and we don't have the time to go into detail on that today. But on a very sort of high-level view, really, when we do get those concerns, and it's a technical concern, let's say, and the customer, who's almost certainly a scientist at this stage that we're selling to, and it's a real concern, we're going to have to address it. what are the things, from a very top level, what are the things we need to think about, Jonathan? How do we at least broach the subject with the customer? We can't just ignore it because, as Prue's already said, it's a roadblock. So what are the things that we would do to sort of address the customer's concerns there?
Yeah. And do you know what? There probably is an argument for ignoring it, but that's probably another podcast. Okay. Goodness me. But I would
here for a whole conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I would suggest, what is the thing that I observe that too many salespeople do, and it's so easy to do this, right? It's you hear the concern, you hear the objection, and you jump straight on it, right? And you fire off, and download a ton of information to the customer, right? It rarely moves the conversation forward. It rarely moves the sale forward. In fact, it's very easy to end up in a low-level argument. Maybe one way to describe it. Worse, occasionally, I'm sure. So I think, I think the key, one of the key principles for me is, really make sure you understand what's behind the concern that's been raised by the customer. And that again comes back to the ability, to ask some great questions, to actively listen, really, really understand it. Okay, why has it arisen? The importance of it relative to everything else the customer might be looking at. And of course, by questioning it, we may discover whether it's real or false. So those questions become everything to me. So that would be, a key piece of advice I would give anyone, and I would give myself constantly to remember to do.
Yeah, great point. And Prue, we're selling to scientists. Scientists are the most skeptical people on earth, aren't they? Yeah. By nature, it's a job to question things. So I guess just saying ours is better because probably isn't enough when we're selling to scientists.
Or you don't understand because.
Let me explain.
Make it worse. Yeah. Let me explain it again.
Yeah. That's brilliant one.
If you didn't understand it, I'll just go through it again. Yeah, I think they are sceptical, and I don't want to be outquoted by Jonathan, so I won't be. It's that Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's with objection handling. It's seek to understand before being understood. So it's that idea of let me understand why you said that, why now, and unpick what the customer's actually said, and seek to understand where that comes from before we have a chance to be understood in a good way, which helps us navigate this hurdle or minimize this hurdle or whatever it is that's come in front of us. And I think it's that take a breath when you hear it, even if you've heard it 100 times before. Just take a breath. And actually go, well, let me understand a bit more about why you said that. I'm really, really interested to know. And then if we do that in a patient and understanding way, we have a much better chance of, as you said, Jonathan, actually moving the sale on. Because isn't that what we're trying to do? We're trying to move it on. And be patient. Don't get defensive. Don't roll your eyes. That's my special trick. When I get something that annoys me, I roll my eyes at people.
We haven't noticed, Brian.
It's good. It's good news. It's great. They're interested. It's like, good, they're interested. Now let me understand. Let me just be patient and understand.
Fantastic, guys. So hopefully, dear listener, you've got from this podcast that objections are good news. They're a normal part of selling. We should actively seek them out. We should welcome them and see them as just another roadblock that we've got to get round to get one step closer to the customer and for customer's order and ultimately the sale. So if you want to know more about our objection handling, then you can obviously contact us through our website. We cover it in both our tailored and our open programs, and it's always a popular part of the training that we do. So if you've enjoyed today's podcast, folks, then don't forget to subscribe in your favourite podcast app. And of course, please tell your friends and colleagues about us. Also, we would love you to leave a review on either Apple or Spotify. It really does help us in lots of mysterious ways. And you can also contact the show if you've got a question, if you want to email us about anything we've said, or even just disagree with us, or even if you've got a concern, dare I say, then you can email us. And the email address is just podcast@georgejames-training.com. That's podcast with a capital P at georgejames-training.com. I'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with another special guest interview. Until then, folks, happy selling, and we'll talk to you soon.